Okay, and welcome to the video. Today we are talking about identifying symptoms of mental illness. So what does that mean? So when you have problems with your car, you want to be on the lookout for the engine, the little red light that tells you, hey, something's wrong, right? And so what happens is that the little engine light tells you something's wrong way before something is seriously wrong. But when it comes to mental illness, oftentimes it's the case that when we catch these red flags, they're way too far ahead in advance. So, for example, hold on, my eye. So one of my red flags that I thought was a red flag was paranoia, right? When I start getting paranoid, I'd say, oh, well, that's just a sign whenever I'm mentally decompensating. But the problem is that's already a sign that I'm already too far ahead decompensating, because whenever you're sick with a cold, you have sniffles first, you have maybe a sore throat, but you're not bedridden. That's not a red flag. That is the sickness. So for me, paranoia is the sickness. That's one of the main symptoms of schizoaffective, is having that really bad paranoia. And so it's important to understand that when you're identifying these symptoms of mental illness first, that you identify the very, 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 very beginning signs, like very simple things like not sleeping, irritability, uh, lack of motivation, knowing what causes those things as well, not just being like, oh well, I have not lack of motivation, or I just can't sleep. Identifying why is it that you can't sleep? Is it a medication issue? Is it that you're staying up too late because you're depressed? Is it because of this or that or the other? So I will list off reasons why it's important to know these signs, because it could help save your life. That's the main reason. It can help save your life. I think that for me, so the last time I was in the hospital, I noticed that I was getting irritable and more angry, and I was blowing up at things I shouldn't have been blowing up. And because of that, I kept myself from attempting suicide. I was able to de-escalate myself from the situation. I was able to de-escalate myself from the situation, used breathing techniques, call friends and stuff like that. So it helped me a lot with being able to say, okay, I gotta slow down, I gotta calm down, and stay alive. The second reason why identifying symptoms is really important is that it helps you have a baseline of where you're at progress wise with your mental health. It helps you to understand that like what you're doing well, what you're not doing so well, and what you can improve on. And another reason why identifying symptoms is so important is because it just makes life easier. It helps you be more in tune with your body. Like whenever you're doing physical exercise, you know what hurts, what doesn't hurt, what moves feel good, what things you need to work on. So that's the same thing with mental health, right? You need to make sure when you're doing these things that um, your mind is in line with what it's feeling physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so that all takes effect into that. So um, I will talk about some of my warning signs, identifying symptoms, and what I do to stay on top of that. So, in order to stay on top of your warning signs, you have to do two things. Number one, um, keep up with your treatment, and two, use coping skills. You have to keep up with your treatment. What does that mean? Go to therapy, go to get your meds, uh, figure it out. It's so important that you know what meds you're taking, what they are, how they work. So for me, I take a mood stabilizer, an antipsychotic, an anti-seizure, a thyroid medication, and an an anti-anxiety and anti-seizure. So I take all those medications; those cover all the bases for my mental health and how I feel, and they work pretty good right now. And so that's the treatment part. And part of the treatment part is also going to therapy. People were like, I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to have a bad therapist. The thing is, like if you don't like the therapist you're with, just go see a different one. Like it's not a huge deal. I had a situation where I was seeing a new therapist for the first time. I really did not vibe with him. I felt like he was being way too judgmental and assuming way too much about me. So I'm not going to see him again. It's just simple as that. It upset me. Of course, it sucks whenever you're trying to get help and you end up feeling like the person who's trying to help you is not helping you. But you can just change. So the second part of it is coping mechanisms, right? So for coping mechanisms, you have to make sure they're healthy and you have to make sure you're doing them constantly. And so for me, the there's different types of coping mechanisms. There's distractions. There's things that help you ground yourself. There's things that help you get out of the situation. Things that help you express yourself. So like a distraction would be like maybe like watching TV or playing a video game. Grounding would be like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, which you when you're like feeling really out of it, you look at 5 things you see, 4 things you touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. And that actually does a good job of bringing you back into center. And then another one would be like expression would be like art or music or something like that, doing something creative. So there's all these kinds of ways of doing that, and also exercise is a huge one because it helps you feel good. It literally gives you feel good chemicals. The hard part with exercise, if you haven't done it in a long time, is that there's this expectation that you have to do everything right away. That's not true. Just do what you can. Just do what you can. If you have to walk 5 minutes, you walk 5 minutes. That 5 minutes of walking is better than no minutes of walking. So you have to have these in, and also you have these things. You have de-escalation coping mechanisms, which will help you, like grounding, to help you get from a place of really high elevated or really low emotion, and to get calmer and relax, and to not be as aggressive or not to be as emotional or not be as impulsive. And so a lot of these things involve mindfulness. And so like meditation exercises, relaxation exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, deep breathing. And the thing is, these things definitely work, but do not practice them while you are in crisis mode. Practice them while just everyday life. If something a little stressful happens, use it. So all that to say, all of these things are part of identifying symptoms. All this is a part of identifying your symptoms. And so it's very important that you realize that, and because if you don't, you're not going to be effective in identifying what these things are. So I'll go through a rundown of what my warning signs are. My warning signs are if I'm not sleeping, if I'm irritable, and if I can't stay still. Those are like really easy ones for me to catch. Because that's that's the warning light, right? That's the warning light of like, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where I could be, and this is where I don't want to be. So let's say that these are the warning signs, the beginning warning signs: that can't sleep, irritability, and what was the other one I said? Can't stay still, right? The ultimate ones that are like crisis ones are paranoia, aggressiveness, physical and verbal aggressiveness, and just mania. That's the extreme, and that's that's crisis mode. That's not your warning sign. Those are not your warning signs. Your warning signs are way before. So what that takes in order for you to understand what these warning signs are, you have to think. You have to think and be aware of what your body feels like. Because sometimes whenever we're just living life, we live life so mindlessly. We just eat mindlessly. We go through our day mindlessly. We just do whatever. And it's not always a bad thing. We can't always be in tune with every single little thing that goes on in our lives, right? But it's also very important to understand that it's also crucial that we understand how we feel at certain moments of our day. So for me, I have to balance knowing what my warning signs are with the coping skills, the treatment, and the whole overall goal is to have hope, right? We're doing this for a reason. We're doing this for a reason. We're not just trying to get better with our mental health because we're just trying to get better with our mental health. We're trying to find a reason why we're fighting this stupid thing in the first place. And for me, I've been having a hard time with that. Because I was religious for a long time, and I gave the last church I was with a hard time, but but I just had a really hard time. I just had a really hard time, and I couldn't really function, and things got really bad all of a sudden. And so I wanted to. I had a really bad manic episode. I was just a full blown. I mean, part of it was I was given medication that made me manic, and also that's another thing. Knowing your medications is so important because you don't know if the meds you're on are wrong medications if you don't know what they are, and so it's important to ask your doctor, why am I taking these medications? What are these medications for? Why? What do these? Because doctors are doctors and they've gone to school and do all the stuff done all the stuff to be a doctor, but they're not perfect and they make mistakes too. So it's very, 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 very important that you know what meds you're taking, how you're taking them, and how they work. If they're not working in a way that's conducive to your health, stop taking them. And at any point you feel like a med is not, you're having adverse side effects that make it difficult for you to function, just stop it and then talk to your doctor as soon as possible. That's the best thing you can do. Because there's no point in taking medication. Oh, I'm being med compliant, but it's literally making you miserable. And so with that, when it comes to medications that are making you miserable, or like a medication regimen, if it's one medication in particular you can point to, I would say that figure out what medication it is and what it makes it feel, how it makes you feel, and identify how you were feeling before you're on this medication and after. And you can pinpoint a certain way, especially if it's like extreme nausea, can't focus, can't concentrate, blurry vision, extreme irritability. Stop taking that medication. It's not a matter of non-compliance. You can't not take that medication if you can't be med compliant if the meds are not helping you, right? So I know this video may not have seemed like all over the place, but that's because identifying symptoms of mental illness is all over the place. It's a holistic thing that you need to take care of and to identify what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So, and one last thing is that whenever you're identifying your mental illness symptoms and stuff like that, go look on a general list of mental health symptoms. NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, has a lot of good resources on mental illness. I'll leave a link in the description. And just identify what they are. And then so what you can do is actually find those symptoms of mental illness and actually like see how it applies to your life. Like at what points do these symptoms apply to your life? And if you're not really diagnosed with anything, but you think you have to, if you think you have these symptoms, do not treat them on your own. Do not treat them on your own. See someone, a therapist, a doctor, a psychiatrist, even a primary care physician. That might even help. Do not self-diagnose because that can lead to lots of incorrect choices and decisions and toxicity. And so it's very, very important that you get a diagnosis from a doctor. Straight up. From a therapist, doctor, psychologist, whatever. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope this video give you a better look into like what it's like for me to understand my mental health and how I try to handle my things. But thank you so much for watching. I apologize that the video was sort of like not on the normal uploading schedule, but I'll be continuing to make videos. I'm glad that this video got a lot of love and support in the community tab, and so thank you so much, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.